Hi, welcome back to my channel. I'm Megan Myth. We're picking right back up where we left off in the Project 2025 Foreword on page 8. Kevin Roberts is getting into authoritarian territory in this next bit. He disregards Congress as a co-equal branch of government to the President and the Supreme Court, claims any and all funding equates to a woke agenda, and that any institution receiving government funding can be punished. He says, unaccountable federal spending is the secret lifeblood of the Great Awakening. Nearly every power center held by the left is funded or supported, one way or another, through the bureaucracy by Congress. Colleges and school districts are funded by tax dollars. The administrative state holds 100% of its power at the sufferance of Congress, and its insulation from presidential discipline is an unconstitutional fairy tale spun by the Washington establishment to protect its turf. Members of Congress shield themselves from constitutional accountability, often when the White House allows them to get away with it. Cultural institutions like public libraries and public health agencies are only as independent from public accountability as elected officials and voters permit. The language he uses is very antagonistic, like, how dare they do this? Whatever it is they're doing. He's trying to make you get angry at the left and feel threatened by them at the same time. This is dehumanization. The left is not your friend. The left is not your coworker. The left is not your brother or sister. That makes it easy to hate the left. And then the left can be anyone, which makes them everyone. And the Great Awakening, whatever that is their crime. Dehumanization is the beginning of the road to bigotry and hate. It's easy to hate someone you don't believe is as righteous or moral as you are. It's easy to hate someone you believe isn't worthy. It's easy to hate someone you don't know personally. But what if they are moral and worthy and you've just been led to believe that they aren't? If you don't personally know them, you can't know if they aren't moral or worthy unless you only believe what someone else tells you. As a practical example, not all immigrants are criminals, but that doesn't stop the Trump regime from convincing people that all illegal immigrants are criminals, even though the data shows that immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than American citizens. Once the Trump regime has decided that all illegal immigrants have been taken care of, I'm sure they'll start claiming that all legal immigrants are criminals, even though they aren't. If that happens, it proves that it's not about keeping Americans safe. It's about villainizing immigrants in order to divide the American people and make it easier to hold on to their power. Lately, the Trump regime has been talking about suspending habeas corpus, which is your right to question why you've been detained by authorities. Trump would have you believe that if this happened, it would only be limited to immigrants. That's a lie. Habeas corpus is all or nothing. The Trump regime wants you to give up your rights in the name of safety. It's a ploy to give the Trump regime more power. If they take away habeas corpus, they will keep manufacturing emergencies in order to keep it suspended. They will not give it back. This is an attempt to make people turn on their own community instead of the people in power. If the average person is focused on the person next to them, they're not looking at the person above them. When Kevin Roberts says cultural institutions like public libraries and public health agencies are only as independent from public accountability as elected officials and voters permit, he's saying that those institutions are under the control of the mass population, regardless of their positive benefit to society. If these institutions declare something to be true that the alt-right doesn't like, suddenly, those institutions have gone rogue and need to be reined in. A good example is libraries carrying LGBTQ+ books. But if they're promoting an ideology the alt-right agrees with, well then, they're just providing a public service for the good of the people. This is dangerous. It's a form of thought policing and information control. It's reflective of the view that people cannot be trusted to know the right thing, so the government needs to do the thinking for them. This takes away the freedom to think for yourself. What's the point of making a decision on something if your only options are what the government permits? I'm not talking about breaking laws. I'm talking about things like which TV show to watch and which book to read. This is another attempt to divide and sow distrust in the institutions that people have trusted for decades. Take the CDC as an example. There has never been a time when the CDC was distrusted as much as it is now. And the only reason people are doubting it is because the Trump regime wants you to distrust the CDC and trust what the regime says instead. It's not about your health. It never was. The CDC has no motive to put out misinformation because it would literally kill people if they did. The Trump regime wants you to distrust everything around you, so you look to them and only them for answers. Then they can spoon feed you whatever they want and you'll believe them. Don't believe them. They are lying to you in order to gain power. In the next paragraph, Kevin Roberts claims that President Biden was responsible for all of the egregious regulations in government agencies. He also claims that Biden was abusing presidential power with those regulations and executive orders. Yet that's exactly what Trump has been doing and continues to do since the day he was sworn into office. Executive orders are not laws. If they were, there would be no point in having Congress around, which would mean you wouldn't have a representative in government anymore. Taxation without representation. Just look at the Qatar plane situation, the Middle East Trump family business deals, the Trump meme coin, Trump selling influence to the highest bidder to have dinner with him.
Should Congress have approval over that kind of gift?
Look, I've been a little busy on reconciliations. I'm not following all the twists and turns of the Qatar jet. I've certainly heard about it. My understanding is it's not a personal gift. The president's a gift to the United States, and other nations give us gifts all the time. But I'm going to leave to the administration. They know much more about the details of that. Okay? It's not my lane.
Mr. Speaker, you were very critical of President Biden and his family's foreign business dealings. You supported an impeachment inquiry as a result of it. Are you equally concerned about President Trump's family's business dealings, especially given the fact that he is in a region now where his family has billions of dollars of investments in Doha and Saudi Arabia, and the fact that he has a crypto business now where he's auctioned off access to the White House for the highest bidder in his meme coin?
Look, there are authorities that police executive branch ethics rules. I'm not an expert in that. My expertise is here in the House, okay? I'll say that the reason many people refer to the Bidens as the Biden crime family is because they were doing all this stuff behind curtains, but in the back rooms. They were trying to conceal it, and they repeatedly lied about it, and they set up shell companies, and the family was all engaged in getting all on the dole. Whatever the President Trump is doing is out in the open. They're not trying to conceal it.
But Mr. Speaker, the investment in the meme coin, those folks are not transparent. We do not know who those people are that have invested in the meme coin.
I don't know. I can just tell you that, President Trump has had nothing to hide. He's very upfront about it.
And by the way, the Secretary of State claimed to be ignorant of that dinner with mostly foreigners who haven't gone through the proper security checks. How is that proper national security protocol?
The president has offered access to him to the 200 top purchasers of his meme coin. Reports are that maybe about half or more of those individuals who will be meeting with him, many in a VIP reception, are foreigners. Do you have a list of those foreign individuals who will be meeting with the president?
I don't. I don't know anything about it. I didn't even know there was a dinner on Thursday night, so I'm not sure what you're referring to.
So you don't know whether any of the foreign individuals who are going to be meeting with the president this Thursday night, for instance, are on our list of sanctioned individuals, or whether any of those individuals have connections to, let's say, terrorist organizations abroad?
Well, I think if they had terrorist links, the Department of Homeland Security probably would not have allowed them into the country. But I don't even know there is a dinner on Thursday. You're asking me about something I don't know about.
The president is always the president, even in off hours. That dinner is the cherry on top of the corruption sundae that Trump keeps shoveling into his face. People, mostly foreigners, paid into his meme coin, which he directly profits from, and then those people got to have dinner with the leader of a major country. If any other president had done this, conservatives would have been losing their minds over this level of corruption. But because it's Trump, they are looking the other way. Don't look the other way. Keep Trump accountable, just like any other president. You, as an American, deserve at least that much. The president works for the American people. You don't work for him. Selling his time to the highest bidder is not a sign that he respects the working American. It's a sign that he respects money, and money only. That's not a quality we want in a president because it means the president's loyalty can be bought. Let's see what he says in the next paragraph. Properly considered, restoring fiscal limits and constitutional accountability to the federal government is a continuation of restoring national sovereignty to the American people. In foreign affairs, global strategy, federal budgeting, and policymaking, the same pattern emerges again and again. Ruling elites slash and tear at restrictions and accountability placed on them. They centralize power up and away from the American people, to supranational treaties and organizations, to left-wing experts, to sight unseen all-or-nothing legislating, to the unelected career bureaucrats of the administrative state. Roberts is making some major leaps here, and I don't think they make sense in a practical way. Let's break it down a bit further. Restoring fiscal limits and constitutional accountability to the federal government is a continuation of restoring national sovereignty to the American people. The American people are still voting for representatives to represent them in government. I will say that I've seen a lot of behavior in Congress that is concerning and seemingly self-enriching. This behavior is a problem with those specific representatives, and they need to be voted out. Up until Trump started his second term, I wouldn't agree that national sovereignty had been taken away from the American people, but with the Trump regime disappearing people, both citizens and non-citizens alike, lack of due process, an autism database in the works, shipping people off to a foreign gulag, accepting bribes in exchange for influence, and more, those are things I would say is taking national sovereignty away from the American people. Constitutional accountability wasn't really an issue until the Trump regime started shitting all over the Constitution and people's rights. Treaties don't centralize power up and away from the American people. Treaties are a necessary tool for governing on an international stage. The US can't just govern as though it's the only country in the world. Other countries, I'm mainly talking about our allies here, or the few that we have left, deserve the respect of governing on the same level as the US. Other countries are not less than because they are smaller and have less exports. One of those left-wing experts is a scientist named Art Allen who has used government funding over the past 35 years to crack the code to finding things in the ocean. This allows the Coast Guard to calculate the location of someone lost at sea and go right to their location to go pick them up. It's a new science we wouldn't have had if someone hadn't been working to make a better Coast Guard. That takes funding and time. The Trump regime is stripping funding from research faster than we can blink, and they're doing this simply because they don't like it. Science and research doesn't exist to confirm your conclusions. It exists to find answers to questions that don't have simple answers. There are some major breakthroughs that were found on accident when the scientist was asking a different question. My point is, if we never ask questions, even questions we don't like, we will never get breakthroughs and society and technology will stall altogether. Asking questions is the basis of science, and asking questions is one of the worst crimes to commit in a fascist regime. I will never stop asking questions, even questions the regime doesn't like. It's ironic that Roberts calls out all-or-nothing legislating because that's exactly what the Republicans did recently with their big, beautiful bill. It passed the House of Representatives at 7 o'clock in the morning. This bill has a major funding cuts in a lot of federal programs, including Medicare and Medicaid, which Trump and the Republicans promised not to touch.
Right.
Can you guarantee that Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security will not be touched?
Yeah, I mean, I have said it so many times, you shouldn't be asking me that question, okay? This will not be read my lips. It won't be read my lips anymore. We're not going to touch it.
Moving on. As monolithic as the left's institutional power appears to be, it originates with appropriations from Congress and is made complete by a feckless president. A conservative president must look to the legislative branch for decisive action. The administrative state is not going anywhere until Congress acts to retrieve its own power from bureaucrats and the White House. But in the meantime, there are many executive tools a courageous conservative president can use to handcuff the bureaucracy, push Congress to return to its constitutional responsibility, restore power over Washington to the American people, bring the administrative state to heel, and in the process, defang and defund the woke culture warriors who have infiltrated every last institution in America. Again, Kevin Roberts is using inflammatory language like feckless, courageous, woke culture warriors, and infiltrated. All of these terms have implicit meanings as well as explicit ones, and it creates this divisive tone in this paragraph. And Roberts is not only criticizing the president, he's also criticizing Congress for the funding choices they make. But let's not forget, that is Congress's job. Congress holds the power of the purse, which means they decide what programs get funded, not the president. It's the president's job to enforce congressional laws, not the other way around. That's why the lack of action from Congress is so devastating right now. Congress literally isn't doing their job, which makes me sick to my stomach. Not only that, Republicans are making excuses for Trump's bad behavior. They're endorsing the blatant corruption in the Trump regime. There are a few Congress people that are trying to stand up and do something, but Congress needs cooperation among many members to get things done. One thing that hasn't come to pass is Congress retrieving its own power from bureaucrats in the White House. Congress has made it abundantly clear that, on the whole, they are quite useless right now. While Project 2025 might be Trump's playbook, he's not following everything, at least not yet. He's certainly not pushing Congress to return to its constitutional responsibility. That would mean Trump giving up power, which I don't foresee him or his regime doing anytime soon. I'm also curious to know what Kevin Roberts believes Congress's constitutional responsibility is. Their responsibility is to make laws, which they have been doing. The implication here is that Congress should be doing what the president wants, which is entirely wrong. Congress is a co-equal branch of government to the president, not his lapdog. One more small thing about this paragraph. The woke culture warriors have absolutely not infiltrated every last institution in America. The FBI, for example, is known to be quite conservative. Environmental conservation, often in the form of hunting, but not always, is also something that conservatives generally value. On that note, the Trump regime is trying to sell off public lands for profit and drilling. That's the opposite of environmental conservation. The president does not own those lands. The collective people do. Early in our country's lifetime, President Lincoln had the foresight to protect Yosemite because of its beauty. Don't let the Trump regime take that away from us. Can you imagine if the Grand Canyon, Yosemite, or Yellowstone were to be sold off and you were the last generation to see it? Next paragraph. The conservative promise lays out how to use many of these tools, including how to fire supposedly unfireable federal bureaucrats, how to shutter wasteful and corrupt bureaus and offices, how to muzzle woke propaganda at every level of government, how to restore the American people's constitutional authority over the administrative state, and how to save untold taxpayer dollars in the process. There is a reason why civil servants have protections. It's not necessarily to protect the individual, but the institutional knowledge that would be lost if there was high turnover in the government. The government has red tape around everything, and navigating that red tape takes knowledge and experience. It takes time to gain that experience. There is a form for everything, and you have to know which form to fill out and which person to give it to in order to get even the smallest things done. I truly have yet to see a government agency that isn't needed in some way. The EPA keeps our natural resources clean, including the water we drink. The FDA prevents us from dying from foodborne illnesses. The Department of Labor provides family and medical leave protections for employees across the country. If you think there's a government agency that truly doesn't need to exist, call it out in the comments below. I'd love to know what it is. It takes so much effort to create an agency that they are not created on a whim. And they can't be created without an act of Congress. The Department of Government Efficiency is a repurposed government agency that already existed. Trump did not create it. Woke propaganda at every level of government. This is Robert's opinion, stated as fact. What he believes to be woke propaganda might literally be simple information. Take the idea that pink is for girls and blue is for boys. Those colors are not inherently gendered. This idea has come from society declaring it so. Pink used to be the color for boys. Heels and tights used to be for men. But I'm sure Kevin Roberts would have you believe that men wearing tights and heels today is woke. It's not. There are so many things that have been declared by society that aren't fact, but an accepted norm. Some people might consider men having long hair to be woke, but it was the norm not too long ago. Society changes all the time, and calling societal change propaganda because someone doesn't like it means they're adhering to an outdated way of thinking. I don't recommend using that as a way to accuse someone of closed-minded thinking. No one likes to be told they're outdated. But back to my point, propaganda is everywhere. Everyone sees propaganda every single day in advertisements. That's propaganda attempting to convince you to buy a service or a product. But generally, most people just get annoyed when a commercial comes on. If you get angry at the idea of LGBTQ+ rights, maybe ask yourself why you feel that way. Is it because your political party or your church told you to? That's propaganda too. Project 2025 convincing readers to hate the left? That's propaganda. The Trump regime calling all brown people criminal immigrants? That's propaganda. It's a bit hypocritical for Roberts to be whining about propaganda in the government when he's led the creation of a 922-page book that's nothing but propaganda and expecting said book to be the new government norm. I'm struggling to understand Kevin Roberts' obsession with the American people controlling the administrative state. What does that look like? Doesn't it look like the American people voting in representatives to represent them in the government who then create those agencies? Or is it that Kevin Roberts just doesn't like how people were voting, so he has to make a different claim in order to take power? The term administrative state has been around for a few decades, but it doesn't mean what Kevin Roberts claims it means. It's not some dark government conspiracy to strip power from the American people. Government agencies are created by Congress. You know, the Congress that is made up of representatives of the American people. And those agencies specialize in different things that Congress simply cannot do on its own. These government agencies are operating every day with plenty of work to go around, so I have to wonder why Roberts believes they are superfluous. Take the EPA, for example, the Environmental Protection Agency. The EPA makes sure the water you drink is clean and doesn't kill you. And that's only one of the things that agency does. The Flint, Michigan water crisis is an example of what happens when the EPA isn't around. The crisis was created when the city decided to switch its water from Detroit, Michigan's water system to the Flint River. The Flint River has historically been used as a waste disposal site for multiple industries. Supposedly, the river even caught on fire. Twice. And the city knew this. Unsurprisingly, the new water source for Flint was making people sick, in part because the corrosive river water was affecting old lead pipes and leaching lead into the water. Unfortunately, the EPA failed the residents of Flint and didn't take action to fix the issue. The EPA's failure in Flint, Michigan, shows exactly why we need a government agency like the EPA. If we didn't have an EPA, we could all be drinking lead-contaminated water. I focused on the EPA as an example, but I want to stress that all government agencies have a purpose. And those acts of Congress only happen when there is a substantial issue to solve that the private sector either can't solve or won't solve. I wouldn't expect a private industry to enforce regulations on themselves when those regulations, such as not dumping into a local river, only cost them money and doesn't add more profit. History has shown that private industries are always willing to push the environmental cost of production onto people rather than pay for it themselves. There's always a cost. It's just a matter of paying a small preventative cost or forcing many others to bear a heavier cost with consequences for the surrounding population. Nothing happens in isolation. Going back to the paragraph, I don't think the Heritage Foundation foresaw Elon Musk spearheading the effort to curb wasteful spending and save tax dollars. The Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, has proven to be an utter failure. The amount of dollars saved hasn't even come close to the original projections, on top of the huge costs that DOGE itself has generated. If anything, DOGE has, in my opinion, proven that the government was actually quite efficient, despite what you might want to believe. I can say from personal experience that the government may not be the most agile organization, but everything is accounted for. That's what all those forms and red tape are for. Next paragraph. Finally, the president can restore public confidence and accountability to our most important government function of all, national defense. The American people desire a military full of highly skilled servicemen and women who can protect the homeland and our interests overseas. The next conservative president must end the left's social experimentation with the military, restore warfighting as its sole mission, and set defeating the threat of the Chinese Communist Party as its highest priority. This is one of the most concerning paragraphs I've read so far. Kevin Roberts is implying that our current military is not good enough, which is offensive to the people who are in the military. Just because the military has implemented empathy and awareness training doesn't mean the military is any less effective than it was before. The call to restore war fighting is scary because this is an active call for war. I read an article recently that described how China and the US are gathering resources in preparation for conventional warfare. Calling the Chinese Communist Party a threat in the same breath as restoring warfighting is hard to misread. This sentence has huge implications for the future actions of the Trump regime. Right now, there are active conflicts going on in the world, but there are none on US soil. Conventional warfare always involves killing soldiers. So Kevin Roberts is encouraging the death of soldiers without any clear provocation other than he considers communism a threat. As far as I know, cyber warfare is our biggest battlefield right now. That is a big deal for national security, but it does not kill people the same way conventional warfare does. The other war is financial. China is an economic powerhouse, and the US was at the top of the economic ladder until Trump single-handedly wrecked it with tariffs. The US is actively involved in both the cyber and financial conflicts with China. It has been for a long time, and I expect it will continue for a long time to come. If the US entered into a conventional war with China, it is quite possible that we could have the front line of battle run through the US. The US has never experienced mass warfare the way some other countries have. I'm talking about warfare like World War II, not the Civil War. I'm talking about mass bombings, possibly even nuclear weapons. So many people would die, including civilians. Why is Kevin Roberts calling for that? I'm not trying to be alarmist, but I'm having a hard time interpreting warfighting any other way than conventional warfare because the implication is that we are not engaged in warfighting already. Last paragraph for today. The next conservative president must possess the courage to relentlessly put the interests of the everyday American over the desires of the ruling elite. Their outrage cannot be prevented. It must simply be ignored, and it can be. The left derives its power from the institutions they control. But those institutions are only powerful to the extent that constitutional officers surrender their own legitimate authority to them. A president who refuses to do so and uses his or her office to reimpose constitutional authority over federal policymaking can begin to correct decades of corruption and remove thousands of bureaucrats from the positions of public trust they have so long abused. This is, yet again, another attempt to divide the American people into smaller groups to make them easier to manipulate and control. Everyone believes they are the everyday American, so your desires should be valued over the ruling elite. That's a valid way to view the government. But the next sentence is where the divide begins. Their outrage cannot be prevented. It must simply be ignored. Now, anyone who gets upset with the conservative president's actions is part of the ruling elite, which means they are not on your side. But let's look at this more closely. It is valid to get upset and outraged at any president for corruption, regardless of whether or not that president is conservative or liberal. Kevin Roberts is trying to convince you to ignore anyone that is calling out the president, even if they are right to protest the president's behavior. Roberts is telling you to believe him over what you are seeing in front of you. Don't believe him. The left derives its power from the institutions they control. Now Kevin Roberts is saying the institutions, like the public libraries and public health agencies we mentioned earlier, are part of the left, which makes them the enemy. They are not. Public libraries and public health agencies only seek to give the American people truthful and accurate information. Truth is not evil. Truth is not the enemy. If you cannot believe these institutions, Your options for where to get information gets narrower and narrower until your only option is to believe the people you've convinced yourself hold the truths of the world, even if you can't verify them. In this case, it's the Trump regime. Kevin Roberts wants you to believe that the Trump regime, and only the Trump regime, has the truth and that everyone else is lying to you. This is incorrect. Don't let other people tell you what to think. Anyone who claims to have the only truth is lying to you. Consider why they are saying what they're saying. Why would someone want you to only believe them and not anything you read in a book or in the news? It's because they don't want you to figure out that they are lying to you. On top of the public libraries and public health agencies that Kevin Roberts is villainizing, now anyone in government that isn't the president is being labeled as corrupt. Roberts is propping up the president, in this case the Trump regime, as the hero of modern-day politics and the savior of the everyday American by whipping those evil politicians in line. In order for this idea to make sense, you have to accept that the president is the only good person in the sea of villains, and the president is the only good person that can save the country. The president is not king. The president is not the supreme ruler. You still have a vote. You still have representatives in Congress. The president and Congress work for you, the American people. Don't forget that. Ooh. Thank you for choosing to spend time with me here. You can find links to my sources in the description box below. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. It's an easy and free way to support the channel. If you'd like to support the channel directly, I also have a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description box below. Don't forget to leave a comment. I'd love to know what you think. I hope to see you again soon, and don't forget that asking why is a good thing.